has never been a game for the timid. Leaders throughout history, they have had to make tough decisions, balance power, and sometimes they have to use questionable methods to secure their nation's survival. During the Second World War, three leaders stood out among the rest: Joseph Stalin, Winston Churchill, and Franklin D. Roosevelt. Their leadership during one of history's most brutal conflicts, it was not just about military strategy. It was also about political maneuvering, alliances, and maintaining power. When we look at their decisions, through the lens of Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince, a controversial yet influential political treatise, we see how closely their actions align with Machiavellian principles. Machiavelli's name, it is often tied to cunning, ruthlessness, and manipulation. But his philosophy is more complex than that. At its core, the Prince is about power, how to gain that power, how to keep it, and use it effectively. Machiavelli argues that a successful leader must be feared rather than loved, be willing to deceive when necessary, and above all, must prioritize the stability of the state over morality. This idea may seem harsh to modern audiences, but history has proven its effectiveness time and time again. Throughout history, leadership has been defined by the ability to command power, navigate crisis, and shape the destiny of nations. Some leaders leave an indelible mark by embracing pragmatism, cunning strategy, and unwavering will to secure their nation's interest. These qualities reminiscent of Niccolo Machiavelli's ideal ruler in the book Prince. Today, let us examine 6 such figures: Vladimir Putin, Narendra Modi, Margaret Thatcher in the modern era, alongside Joseph Stalin, Winston Churchill, and Franklin D. Roosevelt during the Second World War. These leaders, though different in ideologies and methods, they share a common thread. They wielded power effectively, adapted to political realities, and made decisions that defined their respective nations' future. Their leadership styles, whether calculated or bold or unrelenting, they offer insights into how Machiavellian principles they continue to shape global politics even today. So let's see. Machiavelli's The Prince. It is not a book of idealism. It is a manual of survival. It strips away the illusions of morality in politics, and it reveals the raw, unsentimental nature of power. Machiavelli argues that a ruler must be shrewd like a fox to detect traps and strong like a lion to scare away wolves. But the real genius of a Machiavellian leader is the ability to manipulate perception, craft a narrative, and consolidate authority in a way that seems almost natural, inevitable, and even desirable. Some people view Vladimir Putin as a Machiavellian leader, a ruler who thrives on power. Putin thrives on power, he thrives on control, and he thrives on manipulation. Others see him as a realist, a leader who simply does what is necessary to maintain stability and assert his nation's influence. The debate over Putin's leadership is ongoing, but one thing is clear. He has mastered the art of consolidating power, shaping public perception, and influencing global affairs in a way that demands both admiration and that demands scrutiny. So, Niccolo Machiavelli, he wrote The Prince as a guide for rulers, to maintain control, arguing that power is best secured through a mix of fear, manipulation, and pragmatic decision making. Putin, knowingly or unknowingly, he follows many of these principles. He uses force when needed. He controls information to shape public opinion, and he ensures his authority. And it remains unchallenged. His action in Crimea and eastern Ukraine, it demonstrates his willingness to use his military strength to achieve political goals. While his control over state-run media, it allows him to influence the thoughts and beliefs of millions of people in his country. Machiavelli argued that a leader should be feared rather than loved if they cannot be both. Fear, according to Machiavelli, fear ensures obedience, while love is fickle and unreliable. Putin seems to understand. This well. His firm stance against political opposition, his handling of dissent, and his decisive actions on the world stage, it creates an image of strength that differs challenges. At the same time, his government cultivates a sense of national pride, ensuring that many Russians see him as a protector of their interests, protector of their nation. He balances force with a carefully crafted public image, allowing him to maintain power without relying solely on repression. He uses propaganda and disinformation. It is another aspect that aligns with Machiavellian strategy. In today's digital age, information is power, and Putin ensures that his government controls much of the narrative. Russian state-run media, it presents him as a strong, capable leader, while opposition voices, they are often silenced or they are often discredited. Outside Russia, his influence operations, they aim to weaken opponents, they create division, and they spread the narratives that serve his interests. The ability to shape perception is a key tool in modern governance, and Putin wields it effectively. But is Putin truly Machiavellian, or is he simply a skilled political strategist? The answer depends on perspective. To his supporters, those who support Putin, he is a leader who protects Russia, its sovereignty. So resists Western influences. It is what Putin in his supporters. And he restores national pride. But to his critics, he is an authoritarian who suppresses dissent and manipulates information to maintain his grip on power. This duality is what makes the Machiavellian comparison so compelling. Yet, one must also consider the limitations of this comparison. Machiavelli wrote in a time when rulers faced constant threats to their survival, when power was often won and lost through war and betrayal. It was the times when it was written. So, the modern world is completely different. The modern world, but still driven by power struggles, it operates within a different framework: diplomacy, economic influence, and public relations. They play a crucial role as military might. Putin's strategies, through reminiscent of Machiavelli's teachings, they are adapted to the realities of the 21st century. Moreover, Machiavelli's his ideas were not meant to be moral guidelines, but rather observations of how power functions. He described what was effective, not what was right. Putin's leadership, whether admired or condemned, it fits into this framework. He does what is necessary to maintain control, project strength, and secure Russia's position on the global stage. That's what he will do. The ethical implications of his methods, they remain a matter of debate, but their effectiveness is undeniable. Finally, regarding this Putin, the question is not whether Putin is Machiavellian, but rather what his leadership tells us about power itself. His ability to navigate complex political landscape, manage perception, and assert dominance, it demonstrates that Machiavelli's insights remain relevant even centuries later. Whether history judges him as a master strategist, a manipulative ruler, or something in between, it will depend on how the future unfolds. But for now, one thing remains certain. Power, in all its forms, it continues to shape the world, just as it did in Machiavelli's time. Then, now let's see about Machiavellian springs in the form of Modi, Narendra Modi. Narendra Modi's rise from a humble tea seller to the most dominant political figure in India, it mirrors the Machiavellian's idea. He represents a carefully sculpted image of a leader who understands the pulse of the people, who knows when to be compassionate and when to be ruthless. His presence is not just political, it is psychological. Like Machiavelli's ideal prince, Modi doesn't just rule a country, he rules the imagination of its people. Consider his communication strategy. Machiavelli emphasized the power of rhetoric, the ability to shape public opinion through words rather than brute force. Modi's Mann Ki Baat, his direct engagement with the masses, it bypasses traditional media and it creates an unfiltered one-way dialogue where he controls the narrative. His mastery over social media, it is unparalleled. Turning to Twitter, WhatsApp and Facebook into modern day royal decrees. With over 90 million Twitter followers, Modi doesn't just influence, he orchestrates national discourse. But a Machiavellian leader does not merely charm, he instills fear. Machiavelli famously argued that if a leader must choose between being feared or loved, fear is the more reliable option, as we discussed earlier. Okay? Modi's political mission, it operates with a singular understanding. While he commands immense love from his supporters, those who oppose him, they often find themselves marginalized. His government has been accused of stifling dissent, limiting press freedom, and using state machinery to weaken adversary. The message is clear. Loyalty is rewarded, opposition is punished. Take, for instance, his economic policies. Machiavelli urged rulers to keep the populace engaged with grand projects even when the actual economic benefits were uncertain. So, Modi's demonetization and Make in India, these campaigns fit this mold, whether they are beneficial or not, but they are grand. Demonetization, despite its questionable economic impact, it reinforces the image of Modi as a leader willing to take bold, unpredictable action even at the time of COVID-19 crisis. His economic vision may not have led to immediate prosperity, but it gave people a sense of movement of transformation, an illusion. It's like an illusion of action, which in politics can be as powerful as actual progress. Even his handling of foreign policy, it reflects Machiavellian principles. Machiavelli advised rulers to be unpredictable and maintain a strong defense. Modi has successfully positioned India as a dominant force in global politics, at least in Indian media, from his bare hugs with world leaders to aggressive posturing against neighboring countries. His government projects strength regardless of the realities on the ground. When the Balakot airstrikes, when this happened, Modi's approval ratings, they soared high. Not because of long-term strategic gains, but because the act itself played into the narrative of a strong, decisive leader, such a way that our media is focused. Then there is religion. Machiavelli noted that religion is a powerful tool for rulers, not necessarily because they are devout, but because faith unites people under a shared identity. So, Modi's political success is deeply intertwined with nationalism, Hindu nationalism. His government has skillfully used this religious sentiment of the majority to build an electoral base, positioning itself as the defender of Hindu culture against external and internal threats. The way they focus, something like that. The narrative. Whether it's the construction of the mandir or the abrogation of Article 370 in Kashmir, every move is designed to reinforce the image of Modi as the guardian of a Hindu nation. So, the final and the perhaps most Machiavellian aspect of Narendra Modi's leadership is his ability to make himself synonymous with nation itself. If we criticize him, his fans will come and say that you have criticized the country. In Machiavellian's view, a ruler must ensure that his personal fate is inseparable from the fate of the nation. So, Modi has achieved this by constructing a reality where criticizing him feels like criticizing the country. His name dominates election campaigns, his image is omnipresent, and his persona, it towers over his own personal party. He has outgrown his party to become a singular entity, a phenomena that even his opponents, they struggle to challenge because of the background of that media. But here is where we must pause and reflect. Machiavelli's ideal prince is not a democrat. He is a strategist who values power above all else. And while Modi operates within a democratic framework, his leadership style, it raises questions about the balance of power, the suppression of dissent, and the sustainability of a governance model centered around one person. Now, let's talk about Iron Woman of UK, Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher remains one of the most compelling and polarizing figures in British history. Her tenure as the United Kingdom's Prime Minister from 1979 to 1990, it reshaped the political and economic landscape of the nation. She was known for her assertive and uncompromising leadership style. Her focus on power and her focus on control and her ability to navigate intense political opposition. Some have argued that her approach was distinctly Machiavellian, rooted in cunning, strategic manipulation, and an unwavering determination to achieve her goals. But to reduce her style of leadership solely to Machiavellian principles, it would be an oversimplification. Her leadership was a complex blend of ideological conviction, pragmatism, and at times ruthless decision making. One of the clearest examples of Margaret Thatcher's Machiavellian tendencies, was her handling of the Falklands War in 1982. When Argentina invaded the Falkland Island, a British territory, is a British territory in South Atlantic, Margaret Thatcher, she responded with decisive military action. Many leaders might have hesitated, fearing political fallout or international condemnation. But Margaret Thatcher aware that strong leadership in times of crisis, it could cement political authority, compelled the nation to war. Her government manipulated public perception to rally nationalistic support. She framed the war as a defense of British sovereignty. She reinforced her image as a leader who would not back down. Her strategy, Margaret Thatcher's strategy worked. Victory in the Falklands conflict significantly boosted her popularity and it helped secure her re-election in 1983. Margaret Thatcher's economic policies, they also showcased her relentless pursuit of control. She dismantled state-controlled industries, she weakened trade unions, and she embraced free market capitalism with a near religious zeal. She believed that Britain had become too dependent on the government and that personal responsibility and competition, they were the paths to prosper. Her approach. It was controversial. Her approach was controversial. While some credited her with revitalizing the economy, but others, they accused her of widening inequality. Regardless of perspective. Regardless of perspective, Margaret Thatcher's ability to push through radical economic reforms despite widespread protest and resistance, it demonstrated her firm grip on power. But was Thatcher purely Machiavellian? If we take Machiavelli's philosophy at its core, the idea that a ruler should prioritize power and stability above all else, Margaret Thatcher certainly displayed elements of this mind. She was unafraid. She was unafraid to make unpopular decisions, to centralize power, and to silence those who stood in her path. She understood that control over information was crucial. Her government managed narratives carefully, ensuring that the public saw her as a strong and unwavering leader. Her dismissal of dissenting voices, both within her party and in the broader political landscape, it further solidified her dominance. To view her leadership solely through the lens, it ignores the depth of her conviction. Margaret Thatcher, she was not a leader who acted out of pure self-interest of power. She had a clear ideological vision, a belief that Britain needed to be restructured to thrive in the modern world. She was willing to endure personal unpopularity because she believed her policies were necessary for the long-term good of the country. Unlike the purely pragmatic Machiavellian ruler who adapts to circumstances for personal advantage, Thatcher was driven by deeply held beliefs. She saw herself as a transformative figure rather than merely a power seeker. Her downfall in many ways, it was a result of the very traits that made her successful. Her refusal to compromise, particularly on the highly controversial Court Act, it led to mass protests and a rebellion within her own party. She had become so accustomed to wielding power decisively that she underestimated the growing resentment among her colleagues. In the end, she was forced. She was forced out by her own conservative party. A reminder that even the strongest leaders are ultimately bound by the structures they operate within. Margaret Thatcher was a leader who defied simple categorization. While she exhibited Machiavellian traits, strategic manipulation, control over information, and a relentless pursuit of her goals, she was also guided by an ideological vision that extended beyond the mere power seeking. Her leadership was a fusion of pragmatism and conviction, ruthlessness and purpose. She reshaped Britain in ways that continue to be debated today, whether admired or despised. Her legacy remains a testament to the complexities of political leadership. In the end, Thatcher was neither purely Machiavellian nor purely idealist. She was, above all, she was a leader who understood the cost of power and who was willing to pay it. That's about Margaret. Then let's go to the battlefields of World War II to see Joseph Stalin, Winston Churchill, and Franklin D. Roosevelt. If there was ever a leader who embodied the phrase, "It is better to be feared than loved," it was none other than Stalin. Stalin ruled the Soviet Union with an iron fist, eliminating political enemies, purging his own military leadership, and using brutal tactics to maintain control. Machiavelli famously wrote, "Men should either be treated generously or destroyed, because they take revenge for slight injuries, but for heavy injuries they cannot." Stalin embodied this principle fully, ensuring that his opposition was not just weakened, but completely eradicated. His leadership was built on fear. The Great Purge of the 1930s, it saw thousands of military officers. They were executed. They were imprisoned, weakening the Red Army just before the outbreak of Second World War. In one of the greatest ironies of history, his paranoia and Stalin's ruthlessness, it nearly cost him the war itself. When Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa in 1941, Stalin's military was unprepared, lacking experienced leadership because Stalin had purged so many capable generals. A true Machiavellian leader, he would not have allowed fear to cloud his judgment to such an extent. While Stalin was certainly ruthless, he lacked the calculated cunning Machiavelli advised. His initial trust in Hitler, for instance, it led to the disastrous Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union. Yet, Stalin learned from his mistakes. His ability to recover from the early setbacks and recognize the Soviet war effort, it demonstrated the resilience that Machiavelli would have admired. He employed extreme measures. Stalin employed extreme measures including forced labor, mass executions, and propaganda to keep the Soviet Union functioning under the system. The result, the USSR not only survived but emerged as a superpower after the Second World War. Stalin's leadership was the epitome of the brute force and fear-driven governance. He may have been a lion, as Machiavelli describes, strong and powerful, but he was not always the fox, the clever manipulator who sees traps before they spring. Now, let's see Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill, he presents a different case. Unlike Stalin, Churchill had to operate within a democratic system, meaning his hold on power was not absolute like Stalin. He still displayed many Machiavellian traits, particularly in foreign and military affairs. He understood the power of rhetoric, inspiring a nation to resist Nazi aggression even when Britain stood alone. His speeches were master classes in psychological warfare, designed to instill both hope and defiance in the British people. Machiavelli wrote that a prince should appear to be all mercy, all faith, all honesty, all humanity, all religion, but only when it serves his purpose. Churchill's speeches, they projected confidence even when the situation is worse. He took decisive military actions such as the controversial but strategic bombing campaigns in Germany, fully embracing Machiavelli's belief that cruelty, if used effectively, that cruelty can be justified in war. The bombing of Dresden, it was criticized as excessive, but it was aimed at breaking German morale. Churchill also displayed cunning in diplomacy, securing American support while keeping Stalin close enough to prevent a Soviet retreat from the war. Churchill, he navigated the complex alliance. It was a complex alliance with Franklin D. Roosevelt and Stalin with remarkable dexterity, ensuring that British remained relevant in shaping the post-war world despite its declining empire. However, where he failed as a Machiavellian leader was in domestic affairs. He did not maintain his political standing at home, losing the British general elections in 1945. Just as the war was concluding, Machiavelli would have warned against neglecting the home front. Churchill won the war, but he lost his grip on power, proving that even great leaders can fail when they ignore key aspects of growth. His loss to Clement Attlee's Labour Party, it showed that British public wanted social reforms over continued war leadership. Machiavelli would argue that Churchill should have adopted his image and policies to maintain power beyond the war. Now, if any of the three leaders truly fully embodied Machiavellian principles, it was Franklin D. Roosevelt. Franklin D. Roosevelt, he was a master of balancing power internationally, militarily, and domestically. He maintained overwhelming public support, navigated Congress skillfully, and provided aid to Britain and the Soviet Union long before the US entered into the Second World War. His strategic patience in engaging in the war alliance, it aligns with Machiavellian's advice that neutrality is often a weak position. Roosevelt chose his movement wisely. He also made ruthless decisions when necessary, such as prioritizing unconditional surrender and authorizing the development of the atomic bomb. Yet, he also maintained an image of benevolence and calm leadership, making him both the lion and the fox. Roosevelt understood Machiavelli's principle that the end justifies the means. The end justifies the means. His internment of Japanese Americans during the war, it was one of the most controversial decisions of his presidency, demonstrating his willingness to make hard choices for what he believed was national security. However, Roosevelt was not without mistakes. His underestimation of Stalin in post-war negotiations, it allowed the Soviets to expand their influence, setting the stage for the Cold War. Machiavelli would have warned against trusting an ally whose long-term interests directly opposed one's own. Still, Roosevelt managed to maintain his power until his death, demonstrating political longevity that even Machiavelli would have admired. Finally, looking at these three leaders during this Second World War through the lens of Machiavelli, it reveals a fundamental truth. Power is not just about force, it is about strategy. Power is about strategy, power is about perception, and power is about ability to adapt. Stalin held on to the power through fear and sheer will, Churchill through charisma and military cunning, and Roosevelt through careful political maneuvering. Each leader used elements of the prince, knowingly or not, to navigate the complexities of war and leadership. What does this tell us about modern politics? The reality is, Machiavelli's insights remain relevant. Leaders today, they may not be commanding armies in a world war, but they still face the same dilemma: when to act with force, when to deceive, how to maintain public support, and how to outmaneuver rivals. The difference is that in today's world, power is often wielded in more subtle ways. Yet, as history shows, those who fail to understand power, as Machiavelli describes it, often they find themselves losing it, whether we like it or not. The lessons of the prince, they still shape leadership, just as they did for Stalin, Churchill, and Roosevelt in the darkest days of the 20th century. So, history remembers. History remembers. History remembers leaders not for their intentions but for their actions and for their ability to wield power effectively. From the battlefields of World War II to the shifting landscape of modern geopolitics, these six figures exemplify Machiavelli's philosophy. Sometimes ruthless, often pragmatic, but always focused on achieving their vision. Whether admired or criticized, their leadership reshaped the world in ways that continue to impact us even today. In an era where political power is more complex than ever, the lessons of these Machiavellian leaders it remain relevant. It reminds us that in the grand chessboard of history, strategy and strength they often determine the legacy of a